Did you know a wealthy young man from Reims gave up his future, his comfort, and his status to serve children the world had forgotten? In a society divided by wealth and neglect, he discovered God's voice not in power, but in classrooms, poverty, and quiet acts of sacrifice. What began as a simple act of help became a mission that changed education forever. This is the story of Saint John Baptiste de la Salle. Chapter 1. The world he was born into and his early years. In 1651, in the city of Reims, John Baptiste de la Salle was born into a noble and influential family. His surroundings were marked by comfort, education, and social respect. From the beginning, his life seemed destined for success within the structures of society. Yet, beyond these privileges, God was quietly shaping a heart that would one day belong not to status, but to service and love. 17th century France was deeply divided between the rich and the poor. While noble families enjoyed education and stability, many others struggled without basic opportunities. Schools were few, and access to learning was limited, especially for the poor. This inequality created a society where many were left behind. Though still a child, La Salle was growing up in a world where suffering and privilege existed side by side. Poor children were among the most forgotten. Many had no access to education, no guidance, and little formation in faith. They grew up without learning to read or understand the truths of God's love. Their lives were often shaped by hardship and neglect. This silent suffering, though not yet fully understood by him, would later become the very place where God would call La Salle to serve with compassion. As the eldest son, La Salle carried responsibilities from a young age. He was expected to care for his younger siblings and to set an example within the family. This role formed in him a strong sense of discipline and attentiveness to others. Responsibility became part of his daily life. Through it, he learned patience, generosity, and the quiet strength needed to serve others faithfully in both small and great matters. At the age of 11, he received the tonsure, marking his dedication to God and the Church. This moment signaled the beginning of a deeper spiritual path. It was not only a tradition, but a sign of an inner calling already taking shape. Even at a young age, his life was being gently oriented towards service. God was patiently guiding him, step by step, toward a mission still hidden from his understanding. By 16, La Salle was named a canon of the cathedral, a position of honor and promise. It showed his intelligence, discipline, and commitment to the Church. Many would have seen this as the beginning of a successful ecclesiastical career. Yet, while others saw prestige, God was preparing something greater. This role became another step in forming his character, leading him slowly toward a life of deeper sacrifice and purpose. His early years were a time of quiet formation. He grew in knowledge, responsibility, and faith, supported by a strong family and a structured environment. These elements shaped not only his mind, but also his heart. What seemed like a privileged beginning was, in truth, a preparation. God was laying the foundation for a life that would later be given completely to the service of others, especially the poorest. Chapter 2. Formation, responsibility, and the call to priesthood. As he grew in knowledge and faith, John Baptiste de la Salle continued his studies in theology at the renowned Sorbonne. This center of learning shaped some of the finest minds of the time. There, he deepened his understanding of scripture, doctrine, and philosophy. His intellectual formation was not merely academic, but a preparation for service, as God quietly formed both his mind and heart. Yet, in the midst of his studies, a sudden sorrow changed the course of his life. With the death of both his parents, La Salle was called to return home and care for his younger siblings. Still young himself, he became the head of the family. This unexpected responsibility demanded sacrifice, maturity, and love. In this moment, duty and vocation met, and he chose to embrace both faithfully. Balancing study and family life was not easy, yet Salle remained steadfast. He continued his academic formation while ensuring that his siblings were guided and cared for. His days were filled with responsibility, yet he did not abandon his calling. Instead, he learned to unite duty and devotion. This period formed in him a deep sense of fidelity, teaching him to serve God through ordinary responsibilities with quiet perseverance. After years of preparation, Salle was ordained a priest in 1678. This moment marked a turning point as he entered fully into the service of the church. His priesthood was not simply a role, but a gift offered back to God. With humility and reverence, he embraced his mission, ready to serve where he was needed, even though he did not yet see the path that lay ahead. Not long after, he completed his doctorate in theology, confirming his depth of knowledge and dedication to study. His intellectual formation gave him the tools to teach, guide, and defend the faith, yet knowledge alone was not his goal. For Salle, learning was always meant to serve others. His education became a foundation that would later support a mission far greater than he could imagine at the time. At the heart of his life was a deep and disciplined spiritual practice. Prayer was not an obligation, but a living relationship with God. He cultivated silence, reflection, and trust in divine providence. His days were marked by order and devotion, shaping his inner life. This spiritual foundation sustained him, allowing him to remain attentive to God's will, even when that will was not yet fully clear. At this stage, Salle still believed his path would follow that of a traditional priest. He could not yet foresee how God would lead him toward education and the service of the poor. His life seemed stable, defined, and secure, yet beneath the surface, something was already growing. God was preparing him, slowly and patiently, for a mission that would transform not only his life, but the lives of countless others. Chapter 3. God's Call Through the Poor. The turning point in Salle's life began with a providential encounter with Adrian Niel. What seemed like a simple meeting soon revealed a deeper invitation. Niel carried a burden for poor children who had no access to education. Through him, Salle glimpsed a new path. It was not sudden clarity, but a quiet stirring as God gently opened his eyes to a need he could no longer ignore. Moved by this encounter, Salle began to take practical steps. He helped organize and support the opening of schools for poor children, offering them a place to learn and grow. This work was simple at first, almost incidental, yet each small action drew him deeper into the reality of their lives. What began as assistance slowly became involvement, and involvement gradually became a personal responsibility he could not set aside. At the same time, Salle worked alongside the Sisters of the Child Jesus, who were devoted to caring for the sick and educating poor girls. Through this collaboration, he saw a living example of charity in action. Their dedication inspired him, and their mission expanded his understanding of service. In their quiet work, he began to recognize a broader vision of how education could become an expression of faith. Through these experiences, Salle came face to face with a painful truth. The poor were not only deprived of knowledge, but also of the basic formation needed to grow in faith. Many children lived without guidance, without instruction, and without hope. This realization touched him deeply. He began to see that education was not simply about learning skills, but about restoring dignity and opening hearts to God's presence. Within this growing awareness, Salle felt a call that was both clear and unsettling. It did not come through extraordinary visions, but through the persistent reality of human need. The suffering of the poor became the voice through which God spoke to him. He understood that this was not a coincidence, but an invitation. God was asking him to respond, not with words, but with his life. Yet this call did not lead to an immediate decision. Salle moved forward slowly, discerning each step with care. He did not abandon everything at once, but allowed his vocation to unfold over time. Each experience, each encounter, deepened his understanding. What seemed at first like a temporary commitment gradually revealed itself as something lasting, something that would require his whole heart. In this journey, Salle came to trust that God was guiding him, even when the path was unclear. He did not control the direction of his life, but allowed himself to be led. Step by step, his mission became clearer. What began as a simple act of help was becoming a calling. In the lives of the poor, he discovered not only a need, but the very place where God was waiting for him. Chapter 4. Radical commitment and the courage to let go. As his sense of mission deepened, Salle took a decisive step. He invited the teachers to live with him. This was more than hospitality, it was formation. By sharing daily life, meals, and prayer, he guided and strengthened them. He desired not only to improve their teaching, but to shape their hearts. In this simple yet radical choice, a new kind of community quietly began to take form. This decision broke the invisible barriers of his time. As a nobleman, Salle was expected to live among his own class, maintaining distance from the poor, yet he chose closeness instead of comfort. By welcoming humble teachers into his home, he rejected social expectations. In doing so, he showed that dignity does not come from status, but from love. His life became a bridge between two divided worlds. Such actions were not easily accepted. His family and peers were deeply troubled by his choices. They saw his behavior as a loss of honor, a lowering of his rightful place in society. To them, his path seemed unreasonable, even scandalous. Yet Salle remained calm. He did not argue or defend himself with pride. Instead, he continued quietly, trusting that faithfulness mattered more than approval or recognition. His commitment went even further when he chose to give up his wealth. During a time of famine, he sold his possessions and distributed the money to the poor. This was not a symbolic gesture, but a real and costly sacrifice. By doing so, he aligned his life with those he served. He no longer stood beside the poor as a benefactor, but walked among them as a brother. Salle also made the difficult decision to resign from his position as a canon. This role had provided him with stability, income, and honor within the church. Letting it go meant stepping into uncertainty, yet he understood that his mission required full dedication. By surrendering this position, he freed himself to serve entirely in the work of education, without division of time or heart. Choosing poverty became a concrete expression of his calling. He adopted a simple lifestyle and shared the daily struggles of the teachers he guided. This was not imposed hardship, but a deliberate choice to live in solidarity. Through this, he gained deeper insight into their challenges. His leadership was no longer distant, but rooted in shared experience, humility, and genuine fraternity. In all these decisions, Salle placed his trust completely in God's providence. He did not rely on wealth, status, or security, but on faith. Each step forward required courage, yet he moved with peace. He believed that God, who had begun this work, would sustain it. In surrendering control, he discovered freedom, the freedom to give his life fully for others, without fear. Chapter 5. Founding a community and transforming education. As his mission became clearer, John Baptiste de La Salle took a decisive step by founding the Institute of the Brothers of the Christian Schools. This was not simply an organization, but a living response to the needs he had encountered. Its purpose was clear: to provide a Christian education to the poor. What began as a small effort now took shape as a lasting work within the church. This new community was unlike others of its time. It was the first religious institute composed entirely of lay brothers, not priests, dedicated solely to teaching. Their vocation was not centered on the sacraments, but on education as a ministry. In this, Salle introduced something new, a consecrated life lived in classrooms where teaching itself became a path of holiness and service. The brothers were called to live together in unity, sharing prayer, work, and daily life. Their strength did not come from individual effort, but from community. Together, they formed one heart and one mission. This common life gave stability to their work and witness to their faith. In their unity, they reflected the gospel, showing that education is not only taught, but also lived through relationships. Salle also brought bold innovations into education. At a time when Latin dominated classrooms, he chose to teach in the local language. This simple decision made learning accessible to those who had previously been excluded. Children could now understand, participate, and grow. By choosing clarity over tradition, he opened the door for many to receive both knowledge and a deeper understanding of their faith. He also introduced the idea of organizing students according to their level of ability. Instead of teaching all students together, he created structured classrooms that allowed each child to learn at an appropriate pace. This approach improved both discipline and understanding. It recognized the dignity of each student as an individual. In doing so, Salle laid the groundwork for modern educational systems still used today. In 1685, he took another important step by establishing what is considered the first training school for teachers. He understood that good education required well-formed educators. This institution provided not only academic instruction, but also spiritual and practical formation. Teachers were no longer left to struggle alone. They were prepared, guided, and supported, ensuring that their work would be both effective and faithful. For Salle, education was never just about knowledge. He saw it as a path leading to God. Through teaching, he believed that young people could discover their dignity and their calling. Education became a form of evangelization, a way of guiding hearts as well as minds. In this vision, the classroom became a sacred place where faith and learning met and where lives were quietly transformed. Chapter 6. Final Years and a Holy Death. In the later years of his life, John Baptiste de La Salle faced increasing opposition, not only from society, but also from within certain circles of the church. His work was questioned. Some could not understand his new approach to religious life and education. What he had built with faith and sacrifice now stood under scrutiny. Yet even in misunderstanding, he remained calm, trusting that God would sustain the mission. His educational methods, once seen as bold and innovative, became a source of criticism. Teaching in the vernacular, organizing structured classrooms, and forming lay teachers were not easily accepted. Many believed he had gone too far from tradition. Doubts and resistance grew stronger. Yet, Salle did not retreat. He believed that what he was doing served the gospel, even if others could not yet fully see its value. At the same time, the community he founded faced serious difficulties. Financial struggles threatened the stability of their work, and internal tensions tested their unity. The brothers were still learning how to live and serve together. These trials were not only external, but deeply personal. They required patience, humility, and forgiveness. Through these challenges, the community itself was being purified and strengthened. Despite all these hardships, Salle remained faithful. He did not abandon the mission or seek an easier path. Instead, he continued to guide, encourage, and support his brothers. His leadership was quiet but firm, rooted in prayer and trust. He believed that the work belonged to God, not to himself. This conviction gave him strength, even when circumstances seemed uncertain or overwhelming. Years of labor, sacrifice, and a life of discipline began to take their toll on his health. His body grew weaker, worn down by constant work and a life of simplicity. yet his spirit remained strong. Even in physical weakness, his faith did not falter. He accepted suffering as part of his offering, uniting it with Christ. His life became a silent testimony of perseverance and love. On the 7th of April 1719, in Rouen, Salle passed away peacefully. It was Good Friday, the day the Church remembers the sacrifice of Christ on the cross. This moment carried deep meaning. As the Church reflected on Christ's total self-giving, Salle completed his own journey of offering. His death was not marked by fear, but by quiet surrender into the hands of God. His passing was not an end, but a fulfillment. After a lifetime of service, sacrifice, and trust, he entered into the peace he had long sought. Those who knew him saw in his death the fruit of a life fully given. He had held nothing back. In silence and humility, he completed his mission. And in that final moment, his life became a lasting witness to faithful love. Chapter 7. Canonization, Veneration, and a Lasting Spiritual Legacy. Many years after his death, the Church carefully examined the life of John Baptiste de La Salle. His dedication, sacrifice, and faith were recognized as signs of true holiness. In 1888, he was beatified, officially declared blessed by the Church. This moment confirmed what many already believed, that his life had been deeply united with God and that his mission had borne lasting spiritual fruit for generations. In 1900, his journey towards sainthood reached its fulfillment when he was canonized by Pope Leo XIII. Through this solemn declaration, the Church presented him as a model for all the faithful. His life was no longer only a historical memory, but a living example. The Church affirmed that his path of service, especially through education, was a true way of following Christ. Half a century later, his influence was recognized in a special way. In 1950, Pope Pius XII proclaimed him the patron saint of teachers. This title highlighted the importance of his mission and its relevance for the world. It affirmed that teaching is not merely a profession, but a vocation. In honoring him, the Church honored all those who dedicate their lives to educating the young. Over time, the Lasallian educational mission continued to grow far beyond its origins in France. Schools inspired by his vision spread across continents, reaching students from many cultures and backgrounds. His work did not remain confined to one place or time. Instead, it became a global movement, bringing education, faith, and human dignity to countless young people throughout the world. His methods also left a lasting mark on education itself. Teaching in the local language, organizing students by level, and forming teachers professionally became widely adopted practices. What was once seen as innovative became foundational. His vision helped shape modern education, showing that effective teaching requires both structure and care. His influence can still be seen in classrooms around the world today. At the heart of his legacy lies a profound spiritual insight. Education is a participation in God's work of salvation. For La Salle, teaching was not only about knowledge, but about guiding souls. Every lesson, every moment with a student became an opportunity to reveal God's love. This vision transformed the classroom into a place of encounter, where faith and life are brought together in a meaningful way. Today, St. John Baptiste de La Salle remains a powerful example for educators everywhere. He shows that teaching can be an act of faith and that ordinary work can become a path to holiness. His life invites teachers to see their mission with new eyes, not only as a duty, but as a calling. Through his witness, countless educators continue to serve with love, patience, and hope. Chapter 8. A Prayer to St. John Baptiste de La Salle. O St. John Baptiste de La Salle, faithful servant of God and gentle teacher of the poor, we come before you with humble hearts. You saw Christ in the faces of the forgotten and gave your life to guide them with love. Intercede for us. that we may learn to serve with the same compassion and unwavering trust in God. Pray for all teachers, that they may remain faithful to their vocation even in moments of difficulty and discouragement. Help them to remember that their work is not in vain, but part of God's greater plan. May they find strength in your example and courage to continue forming young hearts with patience, wisdom, and deep love. Teach us to educate not only with knowledge, but with love, truth, and faith. May our words and actions reflect the gospel in all we do. Help us to see teaching as a sacred mission, where every lesson becomes an opportunity to lead others closer to God. Form in us hearts that seek not success, but faithful service. Grant us patience in the small and hidden duties of each day. When we grow tired or discouraged, remind us that holiness is often found in perseverance. Help us to embrace sacrifice with peace, trusting that every act of love, no matter how unseen, has value before God. Strengthen us to remain faithful in all circumstances. Bless all students, especially those who feel forgotten or lost. Help them to recognize their dignity as children of God, loved and called for a purpose. Open their hearts to truth and goodness, and guide them toward a future filled with hope. May they grow not only in knowledge, but in wisdom and faith. Open our eyes that we may see Christ in those who are small, weak, or overlooked. Teach us to respond with kindness, understanding, and generosity. Help us to break down barriers that separate us from others. May we never ignore those in need, but instead become instruments of God's love in their lives. Lead us, St. John Baptist de La Salle, toward truth, life, and eternal hope. Guide us on the path that leads to God, especially when the way seems uncertain. Help us to trust in divine providence, just as you did. And in all things, may our lives give glory to God, now and forever. Amen.